Now we are ready to begin building the body. I like to take a 4-inch section of pool noodle, and I've already pre-cut this piece, and I don't worry about the measurements being quite exact on the pool noodle section, but this is about 4 inches, and I'm going to take this 3/4 11-inch hex nut. I'm adding a little bit of hot glue inside of my pool noodle, and I'm just going to slip that in there to add some weight to the body. And then I'm going to take one of these styrofoam balls. It's 2.5 inches in size, and I am going to cut it in half with my bread knife. And a serrated knife or a bread knife works very well for this. So I'm just going to cut it in half and just use one of those halves on one side, the opposite side of the hex nut. But I'm just going to apply some hot glue and add the half a styrofoam ball to the one side of that pool noodle. Then I'm going to take my 2 medium bendy hair rollers, 2 large hair rollers, and 2 dowel rods, a Sharpie marker, and my wire cutters and a ruler. And I'm going to prep the legs and arms. So I'm showing you the size real quick, but I'm just going to remove the cap off the end of both of those, off one end, and I'm hooking that wire to the foam. And then I'm going to take my large bendy hair rollers, and I'm going to measure out 4 inches, and then I'm going to cut that off and remove the wire inside. And there are many different ways you can do this. You could just completely cut it in half or cut it off with the wire cutters, or you can slip it out or cut it off if you want to save the wire. I'm saving some of the wires right now for a few other projects I'm working on, but just pull that wire out or get that wire out, and then you want to replace that wire once you've cut that section that we've marked off, and I'm going to replace it with those dowel rods. Next up, we're ready to work on the arms, and I'm going to take this white felt and I'm going to fold up the end. So I'm just adding some hot glue to one end, and I'm just going to fold it up about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to just grab this black felt so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. But like I said, I'm just folding it up about 1/4 of an inch, and then I don't want the pink of the bendy hair roller showing through, so I grabbed some jersey knit material that's a very light tan color, and I'm just going to get enough to cover the foam hair roller, and then I'll wrap both of the hair rollers in the white felt once I've wrapped them in this jersey knit. So here you can see I've got those wrapped in that jersey knit. Now I'm going to grab my material, my felt material, and I'm just going to apply some hot glue up one side, roll my arm back into that, and then just wrap it around and apply a little bit more hot glue once I get to the other side so that I can kind of finish it off. Press it in there real good, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other arm, and then I will cut up the sleeve, just kind of trim and clean up any edges, and move on to the next step. Now I'm ready to attach my wood balls. So I'm going to grab these two 3/4 inch wood balls, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of hot glue in there inside on that cap, and then put my ball right directly on there and just kind of press it in so that I can make sure that it stays in there securely. Now I'm going to take my pool noodle, and on the bottom of it I'm going to mark these two X's, trying to get them pretty even across from each other, about midway. These are going to be the places where I put in the legs. So I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife and just cut into those X's, and then I'm going to push those dowels, the longer end, up inside those holes. And I did not glue them in at this point, and I remember that a little bit later on once I get the pants on, and you'll see me realize that and pull them out and take the pants off and then re-glue. So now I am ready to make my pants. I have this 5 by 7 inch piece of material, and yes, there is a pesky fly that was driving me crazy during the making of this video. So if you saw that, that is what that was. And so now I'm just taking my material and I'm adding a line of hot glue up both sides. So the side that is 7 inches long, I'm adding hot glue up each of those 7-inch sides. And then I am going to fold my material in half long ways and cut a slit up about 2.5 inches. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and fold the top down, and I'm just folding it down about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 an inch, and I'm going to add some hot glue to the fold, just kind of tucked underneath there, and then press it into the material. And then once I do that, then I'm going to work on the bottom part of the pants. So now I'm cutting that slit, and I'm just going to grab my body and just kind of check it, make sure it's where I like it. And I decided at this point I did want a little bit of extra slit up the middle, and so I added a little bit more and then cut that V that I like to do, which gave me the 2.5 inches and then the 3 inches. There's that pesky fly again. And as you can see, it's 3 inches at the V, and before the V it was about 2.5 inches. So I'm just showing you, I'm folding up the material. So I've got 2 layers of material, and I've rolled up the top layer, and this is on the bottom layer, and I'm just going to press those together once I get that glue on. So I'm using my ruler kind of to help set the glue quickly. Now I'm turning my pants right side out, and then I will check them on my gnome again. And this is where I realized that I did not have my legs glued in. So once I make my little faux pants, faux jeans or button type deal, I am going to take those pants back off and glue those legs securely into the body. Now I'm ready to put those pants back on the body, and I'm going to actually pull the pants up further than they will end up being later, but I want them up pretty high on the body so that I can work on the lower legs and the feet. So now I'm ready to work on the nose, and for the nose I want some elastic hair ties, nylon, actually it's 2 nylon stockinettes, and 2 jumbo cotton balls, and some embroidery floss or yarn. I like to use a kind of a tan color, and I'm just tucking those 2 cotton balls inside of that nylon. I like to stay away from where the seam is, and then when I get it where I want it, I twist a couple times, and then I add my hair ties. And then once I've added my hair ties, I like to wrap the nose with the embroidery floss or yarn, and I just kind of hang on to one end and then pull tight and wrap it around. Tie a little knot to finish it off, and then I'll cut off my excess, and then I use my thumb as a guide to help me cut off the excess nylon material, so you'll see me do that here. Now I'm ready to prep the shoes, and for this gnome I'm going to go ahead and use some tennis shoe keychains, and I'm using 2 left feet. I don't mind. I think that once you pull the pants down you can't really tell unless somebody's actually staring at the bottom of the feet, but I need to get these keychains off of the shoes, and I'll set those aside for another project later. Then I'm going to just untie those shoes, and I'm going to take two of those jumbo cotton balls, and I'm going to stuff them inside the toe of the shoes. So I like to work on both feet at the same time. It just helps me feel like I'm keeping things balanced. So I'm taking those 2 cotton balls and just stuffing them pretty securely down into the toe of those shoes. And then once I do that, I'll add a little bit of hot glue into the heel, and then I will add my little 7/16 hex nuts. I have 2 for this project. I will add 1 each in each shoe. At this point, I'd like to get my guy and kind of check the position of those hex nuts and make sure he's ready to stand, and I like it, so I'm going to go ahead and add some hot glue inside of those little hex nuts, and then I am going to go ahead and stand him up. You want to make sure that you've got him front facing. I have glued them on backwards before. So I'm just going to glue him in there and then make sure he's even, and I'm checking the side and the front, and then I like to tie those shoestrings, pulling them tight, and then once I do this, then I will pull those pants down back around the ankles to cover up those shoes a little bit. Now we're ready to make the mustache, and I have 2 1.5 inch pieces of faux fur, so they're 3.5 by 1.5 inches, so length is 3.5, width is 1.5, and I am going to grab a piece of material real quick and show you cutting. So my blade is extremely sharp, so it cuts very easily through the material. And so I just want to make sure I'm not applying too much pressure. If I do, I will cut all the way through that material. So I want to be careful about that. Now back to my mustache. So I'm going to take these 2 pieces and I'm kind of rubbing off the back of that material to get rid of any of that hanging on hair faux fur. And I'm just applying a strip of hot glue up one side, and I'm going to fold that other side into it. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one while the first one is setting. And then once that one has set up, I am going to grab it again and secure it a little bit more and brush it out. And then I am ready to begin putting my, my pieces together, my nose and my mustache. Now I'm going to grab some pants material. I like this material because it reminds me of a like a towel, like a kitchen towel. And so this is just some capris that I had that I'd cut the legs off for a different project and never ended up using. So I'm just cutting a long strip, and I'm kind of showing you that I'm cutting it right at the seam, but I am going to turn it over on the back side or the inside, and I'm going to fold over the 2 ends about 1/4 of an inch in. Now we're ready to make the chef's shirt, and so I'm going to take this one sheet of white felt, and I'm laying my gnome on it widthways, so landscaped, if you can think landscape version. Um, Now I'm going to scrunch up the top and just keep that bottom even, and then I'm going to grab some hair elastics and tie them onto it. And I didn't do the best job of tying them on. They kind of got hung up, so I end up taking it off and straightening it out a little bit, and then putting it back on the gnome. And once I'm done fidgeting with it and messing with it and straightening it, which I seem to do forever, once I get it to where I like it, then I will apply a dot of hot glue on each end of that felt, and then I will grab my arms and secure them to the body. And this was a bit of a maneuver as well. I ended up grabbing some hot glue and putting it on the sides of the arms, and then grabbing some tan colored yarn, a little bit heavier than the embroidery floss, and just wrapping it really tightly around the top to hold it all together. And then I knotted it and just made sure that it was secure. And now we are ready to put our gnome together. So I'm going to take the two pieces of faux fur, and I'm showing you in this part right here that I want you to make sure that your where the fur meets is facing downward instead of upward. And so I'm just trimming off a little excess of that felt material, and I'm just kind of checking how I like the positioning of the gnome, and the nose and mustache. And then I'm going to glue them together and then glue it onto the body, and then I'll glue the nose on. Now I have my nose glued on and my mustache, so I'm ready to grab my hat and start kind of playing with it and seeing how I want to position it. Like I said, I love my hats to go to the side, so I'm going to make mine lean towards the left-hand side. And once I kind of get it where I like it, there goes that fly again. Once I kind of get it where I like it, I will add a little bit of glue up underneath the nose, just to secure it in place. I also like to add a little dot of glue, and I didn't show this, but I add a little dot of glue to the very back of the hat just to kind of hold it in place as well, since this is a little bit different hat and it's not loose and slouchy. I just like it to be secure. So now we're ready to add the final touches to our gnome. And so I'm going to take these, I've got these little forks from the Dollar Tree. They're plastic little, I guess, appetizer or hors d'oeuvre forks. And then I'm going to take these tiny little buttons. These are about 1/4 of an inch. And that darn fly, I tell you what, that was a crazy time fighting with that fly. But I'm taking these buttons and I am going to make sure that they're positioned how I like them, with a little bit of space between. And I went to Google and I just looked up chef and then chef clip art, and I got some really good examples of the way that a chef's outfit would look. So I just kind of used that as inspiration or a guide to kind of help me know how to put the buttons on the shirt. Now I'm going to take this little towel that I made and just kind of hang it over the body. Once I get it where I want it, I'll glue it and then add the fork, and that is pretty much it. Thank you for joining me in this class, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to see your little chef gnome that you make.